I want you to imagine that this webinar is a game. And it's a game in which I'm playing the role of Dr. Gamification, and all of the participants, wherever you are, and I know that it's spread all over Asia, and I know we've got some people registered from the UK and even somebody from Brazil. So all of the participants in this webinar, they are my team. And I'm trying to build a world-class team of gamification experts. So what I'm going to go through today, I hope will have a big impact on you. And the way that this webinar has been structured and the way that I go about it is intended to be an illustration of gamification. So I'm going to begin by sharing my screen and go through a PowerPoint slide presentation with you to begin with. So this is me, Dr. Gamification, in my clinic. And before we start, I need you to challenge yourself. I need you to ask yourself very carefully why you've actually joined this webinar today. Is it because you want to develop your own learning and development skills? Is it because you are training other people and you want to develop them? Have you got a particular problem? I know Ivan mentioned to me a couple of problems in Singapore, one to do with the condition known as trigger finger, another one to do with compliance of patients who have who need dialysis. Do you want to be more successful in your learning activities? Do you think gamification can help? Or do you just want to learn more about gamification? If the answer to these questions is yes, then I believe I've got a remedy to share with you, and I can give you a prescription. Now, we've only got a limited amount of time, but I want to tell you that the best is towards the end of this presentation. I'm actually going to play with you a game that I developed specially for this event. It's called the coronavirus game, and you'll see after I've been through the content, how the game was developed and why it was developed in the way that it is. But the point is that I want you to take away some secrets from the video games and entertainment industries, and the important thing is I want you to apply them to your own situation. So here are my objectives. I'll tell you first of all the things that it's not going to do. Even though we're going to develop a game for coronavirus, it won't show you how to defeat coronavirus. It won't teach you to be a video games developer or teach you how to program video games or even to create great graphics and sound. And it certainly won't make you more attractive to the opposite sex. But what it should do is enable you to use gamification to achieve your objectives. I'm hoping that it's going to inspire you to want to learn how to create your own immersive learning experiences. And I promise you, what you see developed in the coronavirus game is probably within the capabilities of anyone listening to this webinar. It's also designed to help you understand gamification better. And importantly, I want to challenge you to try to gamify some of your own activities. And finally, I think it will make you more attractive to potential stakeholders because you will have a better understanding of gamification and be more able to develop compelling learning experiences. So it's a very ambitious objective, and that is to make a difference to your life. To begin with, what can we learn from games? Maybe some of you watched the video that I created and submitted last week. If you have, I'm going to run through this very, very quickly. What can we learn from games like golf, cards, any game you care to mention? They have a start point and they have an end point. The end point is usually a goal or an objective, and the outcome of the game is a result. And in the worst possible case, you finish up with game over. Now, game over in my context is a serious, meaning that the game is over and you can't play the game anymore. And I would argue that the only time that the game is over is actually when you're dead. So I tend to think of games as having a destination and games as being a journey. And in that journey, there are a number of components. And the most important of these is the challenge. The challenge is very important because it helps to compel us to play the game. And that challenge is fueled by the element of chance or uncertainty. This is why we play cards. There has to be some kind of motivation. Not everybody enjoys playing golf. Not everybody enjoys playing cards. The concept that I want you to take away with today is that each game is the same each time you play it, but it's different each time you play it. If you look at a game of golf, the rules are the same. You start off at the tee, you hit the ball, you aim to go around the course in the lowest possible course. So the game is the same each time, but it's different because there are different course conditions, different players you're playing against. And so when you're developing games, it's important, if you want to make them interesting, that they may be the same each time, but they should be different. And this is the same when you're running webinars or any training courses. The other thing about games is they always have some form of choice, and those choices can influence the outcome. And finally, two other important things are the ability to measure the results and provide the game player with feedback. So games can be addictive, but they're not necessarily addictive to everybody. They always help to develop skills and influence behaviors. And finally, and very importantly, the best games are games that you can never completely master. That's why you want to go back and play them again. So when we look at gamifying learning journeys, again, if we start with a start point and an end point, which I like to think of as a destination, the starting point is where you are, and the destination is where you finish up. And in between, there is the journey, which is the learning journey. Now, I'd like to ask you, are all the sessions that you run, the webinars that you've been involved with, are they all games? Have you identified any characteristics from any of these learning activities that would classify them as games? So what I'm going to do is to show you how you can make up a gamification prescription and inject all of the things that I've described to you to create a great learning journey. And great learning journeys always have unexpected destinations. What you can expect is that if you apply gamification to your learning and development, you should enhance your own and other people's learning and development. You should improve your chances of success. You will probably generate unexpected outcomes. You certainly will create more memorable experiences, and in the process you will develop additional life skills and give yourself a sense of achievement. But at the end of it all, your life should be different. So my ambition is to help you during this short time I have available to make a difference to your life. And I'm going to do it in the form of Dr. Gamification's Immersive Learning Clinic and the Coronavirus Game Challenge. So something for you to think about while we're going through this exercise is, have you ever used gamification in your personal and business life? And I will guarantee almost certainly that you may answer no, but I will tell you that you're wrong. Every one of you have used gamification in your life. We're coming back to coronavirus. How much should it cost to develop a coronavirus game? And who should the game be developed for? And what should the game objective be? Now, I'm going to go through a process that I arrived at from a previous webinar when I asked exactly the same questions to another audience. And they told me that a coronavirus game should be developed for the general public with the objective of improving outcomes for coronavirus, stopping infection, and reducing the number of people dying. I'm going to go through this extremely quickly because I want to spend as much time as possible showing you the game so that you can see how all of these components have been built into it. However, I think it's also important just to share with you a couple of other case studies which show you how gamification can be applied not just to learning but to many other activities. I'll need to tell you a little bit about gamification theory and practice, how you combine gamification immersive technologies. Most of you, and in fact all of you, will have existing learning content, and I want to show you how you can use that content in different ways to gamify experiences. So the first of the case study is the conference exhibitors challenge. So the exhibitors challenge is, how do you attract visitors to a stand? How do you capture their visitor contact detail? How do you impress visitors with your services? and so on. All of these things are common to any exhibitor at a conference. So where they start from is that they paid for a stand, they've got something to sell, they have a sales proposition, and they need customers. At the end point, that's their destination they want to have. They want to have contact people visiting the stand, they want qualified leads, they want to give a good impression to their brand, and they want to motivate their staff. So I'm suggesting to you that you can inject gamification into this situation and help to achieve all of these objectives. Now, this is a case study based on a game which I actually developed over 20 years ago to solve the exhibitor's challenge. And it took the form of a kiosk on the stand with a memory card game. So delegates, when they signed on, they had to put in their contact details, so immediately the exhibitor got the details. Then they played a memory card game where they had to match two cards, and if they matched two cards they could answer a question, and these were random quiz questions, and then at the end of it there was an award ceremony. Second case study I want to go through with you is what's called the Conference Icebreakers Challenge. I'm sure a lot of you have been to conferences or workshops or webinars, particularly when you're talking to strangers, as I am now with you. You want to be able to facilitate discussion between different people, help to build relationships, share different perspectives, get people talking, and create a memorable experience. So all of these things are objectives that you have when you're setting up a conference. So where we're starting at on the Icebreaker Challenge is we've got this room of strangers with different viewpoints. What we want to end up with is with a collaborative set of relationships built around this gamified experience in the middle. So what was the gamification experience that helped to solve the Icebreaker Challenge? Well, the solution was something called the Marshmallow game, where the idea was that people sit round a table, they're given some marshmallows, spaghetti sticks and some masking tape, and the idea is together they have to build the tallest freestanding structure which stands on their table. So it's a competitive game, and so in this conference, people at different tables worked together and they had to get to know each other and collaborate in order to achieve the goal. But what came out of this particular exercise, which was based on a real case study in Northampton 3 years ago, was a recording that I made in 360 degrees with a camera in the middle of the table. And what it showed me when I played the video back was there was a much greater awareness of your own personal behaviors. So now we come on to Dr. Gamification's case study 3, which is the coronavirus challenge. And I'm going to talk to you about how you create a gamified immersive learning experience. So the challenge in this coronavirus game is we want to minimize the impact of COVID-19. We want to stop the spread of the disease. We want to reduce the number of fatalities, prevent the breakdown of public health services, change citizens' behaviors, and encourage compliance. So in this challenge, we have a starting point, and the starting point was when coronavirus became known to the world last year, and the starting point is we had a totally new virus which was highly infectious. It's proved to be fairly asymptomatic from a lot of people. It prevented access to travel, it stopped large-scale events, and it had a big impact on the public health service. So where we want to be is in a different and better place. So how do we do that? How can we inject all of the elements of gamification to achieve our objectives? Well, I just want to tell you very quickly about a solution which was developed by another company called Focus Games in the UK. So based on those challenges, this company, Focus Games, developed this game. So it starts off with a screen that you see now, and if there is time available before the end of this webinar, I will actually show you how the game is played. When you start the game, you select to play, and you're given a number of hexagonal blocks to select. Where do you want to go from here? And with each block, you are given a question. And if you get the right answer, you get feedback from the answer to that question, and you move on in the game. And so the idea is to get all of the questions right, and move safely through without getting infected by coronavirus. And at the end of it, you will get a score. So this game was a time-limited quiz. There was only a few minutes to play the game. And the result of this game was it had 10,000 plays, and they did some research on the outcome of that game, which showed that people's understanding of coronavirus, and more importantly, their intended behaviours, was improved as a result of this game. So Ivan's already been into the process of how you assess and validate games. He's been through his 7-stage framework. What I want to try and do very quickly is to show you where each of those fits into this gamified immersive learning experience. So the purpose will generally be linked to where you want to be. The content will be what goes inside the gamified learning experience. The narrative is very often the starting point or the backstory behind the game. The mechanics also generally go inside the gamified learning experience. And we have aesthetics. And so I'm going to, by the end of this webinar, give you a chance to compare the two games. There is the game that I developed specially for this webinar, and there is the coronavirus game developed by Focus Games. And the point I want to make is that I'm not saying that the game that I developed is better than the game by Focus. But what I want you to do is to think about what these games have in common. They both have the same objective. How are they different? You can see they're different in appearance. They're different types of games. And do these differences matter when you're looking at the final output of the game? So very quickly, I want to go through some of a standard slide presentation about gamification to make the point that it's a life skill and that every human activity can be viewed as a game. So I'm playing this webinar as a game, and I'm playing it with you. You're playing the role of people who want to be an expert team of gamification experts. And when you're playing the game, and because the whole of life is a game, I apologize with William Shakespeare, but I believe that gamification is embedded into everyone's DNA, and everyone throughout their lives plays different roles, and you can view any human activity through a gamification lens. So this is a gamification lens applied to football. So you have different layers of individuals who are involved in the game, and as you go up the pyramid, you have a growing influence and ability to achieve goals. So probably the most recognized people in the game are the players themselves, but above that you have a master strategist and tactician, a motivator or a coach, and this should be your aspiration when you're developing games and learning content. So if we look at coronavirus through this gamification lens, what can we see? Who are the people who are not at all affected by gamification, by coronavirus? They're not interested. Who are the hermits? Who are the people who just read about coronavirus and not really interested in doing anything about it because it doesn't interest them? Who are the fans? And by fans, I mean people who aren't necessarily working in the healthcare sector, but they have a vested interest. They want to protect their own health, and they want to support any initiatives. The players are the people, are the doctors and the nurses, but who is the coronavirus games master? Now, in a previous webinar, I did give some examples are some of my thoughts about who the coronavirus game master. And you could argue that the coronavirus games master is actually Mother Nature. Mother Nature is making the rules. Mother Nature is calling the shots. Mother Nature is responsible for the characteristics of the virus. But if you want to go down below that, the coronavirus games masters are the policy makers in each country. So in the case of the UK, it's our Prime Minister. Second concept I want to go through with you is the idea of a gamification cycle. So games start off with a challenge, they have a response, they have some measurement and feedback. So in the case of coronavirus hits your country, you have to respond in some way. How can you measure the response of your outcome, and how do you provide that feedback to show how you're doing? Well, the way you do it is to include these gamification elements. I've added a number more to the ones that I originally showed you, but in the game that I've developed for coronavirus, all of the items highlighted in yellow are shown. And coronavirus games also have rules. In the case of the real world, the rule was stay at home, protect the NHS and save lives, and also some guidance on the things you should do. The third concept, and it's the last concept, is to realize, like I said at the beginning, that not all games are addictive. And the reason is because there are different influences involved. I'll give you an example in coronavirus. Who are the game influencers? Not everybody is following the social distances or social isolation rules. So who is an authority? Who are you going to listen to when you're playing the coronavirus game? Another influence is what I call adjacency. It's peer influence. You're more likely to be influenced to play the coronavirus game and obey the rules if you know someone who's been affected by coronavirus. If all of your friends are very active and healthy, then you're less likely to be influenced and less likely to be interested in playing the coronavirus game. And what we're talking about today now is the impact of technology on games. And what I call enabling technologies. And these are extremely important because in the case of coronavirus, we can't meet face to face anymore. Ideally, I would love to have you all in the same room with me and be able to talk to you face to face so that I can see the feedback from you. But we don't have that. So we need some way of overcoming the lack of physical contact. We also need to influence understanding and awareness. And if I were just talking in a room with a group of people, it is limited to that group of people, the influence. But if this is broadcast to a wider audience or a recording is broadcast to a wider audience, technology is enabling that. Technologies can also provide you with measurement and feedback, as you saw with the focus game. Technology also helps you to capture and create relevant content and scenarios. And technology also enables you to create positive behavior change. So I just want to show you the technologies that I used in creating this immersive coronavirus game. I used a drone, I used a 360-degree camera, a smartphone, a laptop, and software. So all that was required were the tools that you see on the screen there, and the cost are in total of all of these items, even though I would argue they are the best of breed, would certainly be under £5,000. So for most organizations, these tools are affordable. So what we want to do when we create a gamified immersive experience is to create relevant context, provide people with an opportunity to explore and discover, to create an immersive environment that also provides measurement and feedback. So the technologies that I've shown you will provide some relevant 360-degree images and videos. They will provide relevant learning content, provide you with measurement and feedback tools. They also allow you to create clear objectives, and what you need to inject is some innovation and creativity. So here are some examples of content that you can include in an immersive, gamified immersive environment. You've got 360-degree images and videos. You can see one in the corner there of Singapore, the Merlion. You've got some content which is available on the web, or royalty-free images like the face mask. And you also need, if you're going to be able to do it without having any programming, some form of framework in which you can provide measurement and feedback, show people how they are getting on in the game. So in the case of the coronavirus game, the software that I use allowed me automatically to display on the screen the hotspots that are found, questions answered, time remaining, etc. So these are the design parameters. I'm going to show you again very, very shortly. It should target the general public. It should aim to influence behaviours that limit the impact of coronavirus. It should inform and educate. Therefore, it needs to be based on familiar real-life environments. I've designed the game based on Singapore and Asian environments. It should reward positive behaviours, encourage exploration, and the rest of it. So that's what we should do. And now I want to go on to a demonstration. Before I demonstrate the game, I just want to show you the loading screen. You can see the URL for running the game yourself. And I will show this at the end of the presentation. And this is what you come up with when you start the game. So it's based on a 360-degree image of Kuala Lumpur shot in the morning. And it begins by showing you the rules and objectives. So you've only got 5 minutes in this game to get to Singapore. And to get to Singapore, you need to boost your health as much as possible by finding hotspots, answering questions, and so on. So without further ado, I'm going to stop sharing this screen and I'm going to start sharing the game itself. So now we're going to go into the game and you can watch this, you can enjoy this game on the internet, on that web address. So I recommend that you use dice, playing cards, or Uno cards to make any selections in this game. So I click to start the game, and here we are. You saw the starting screen. So here is a 360-degree image of show you how to scroll in and out. But question here, so I need to begin by opening this question. So this is the first question. Now I use Uno cards, but maybe if anyone wants to type in a letter into the text chat and tell me what card you would like me to select. I'm looking at the chat now. If anybody wants to put in A, B, C, D, or B. Okay, the first person said B. That's a good choice, actually. So when I go to B, I'm in the study bedroom. Okay, I've found 3 hotspots so far. I've answered 1 question, and that question was selecting the event. So you're in the study bedroom. Good place to be because you're safe here, and there's a book that's going to tell you what you need to know. So I need to move to that book, and it will give me information which will be useful to the blood test that I'm going to take later on. So I need to find the face mask to protect me on my travels. So I'm going to scroll around. Well, there we are. There's the face mask. Click on the face mask. So you've selected the face mask. Will the face mask prevent you from getting coronavirus? Would anybody like to give me an answer to that? Yes or no? Okay, you said A. Well, in fact, the answer is not wrong. Not necessarily. A face mask will not stop you from getting coronavirus. It's designed to stop the spread of coronavirus as a result of sneezing. So who's going to give me the next mystery destination? Somebody type in a letter, please. C. Okay, letter C. We don't know where we're going to go. I don't know where we're going to go. And where are we? You've chosen a wild card, and we finished up in Klaipeda. It's a port on the Baltic Sea, but do you know which country it's in? You've got to find and answer the question to get on back on track. Well, we can find the question easy enough. So we need to answer that question to move on. Does anybody know which country Klaipeda is in? Anybody want to type me an answer? Anybody know? Okay, B. Okay, B. It's a good answer because it is the right answer, and it's actually got us back to Kuala Lumpur. But of course, time has passed. We're at Kuala Lumpur at night. We still haven't arranged to have a blood test. We need to find the Bukit Bintang MRT station. What I'm going to do is just to speed things up a little bit, is to just navigate round. And you see there's a hotspot here, which is the Bukit Bintang MRT. So when I go to Bukit Bintang, I'm now travelling on the MRT. I'm going to KLIA station. I need to find the hand sanitizer and answer a question. Okay, I've got 1 minute 15 left, so we're running out of time. What's the minimum amount of time that you should wash your hands for? The correct answer will take you to KLIA. A wrong answer will take you to a different destination. Well, I'm going to give you the answer here. It's 20 seconds, actually. And so that's the right answer. And now I'm actually at the airport. So I'm well on the way. And I need to find the face mask, which will give me a little boost to my health score. Okay, well done. My health score has improved. And I'm going to go to the hand sanitizer here. COVID-19, yes, it is the official name. We've got 30 seconds left, so we've really got to get our skates on if we're going to get to Singapore. 22 seconds left. We need to find the hand sanitizer. What's the name of the drug that improved my chances of surviving? So I know it's dexamethasone. So I select it, and I'm in Singapore. I've got to find a hidden coronavirus hotspot to complete the game, but sadly, I've run out of time. So I can view my score. Okay, so this is a performance report. You can submit this to an LMS system. It can be analysed in detail using Google Analytics. You've also got an optional CSV download. We answered 5 correct questions, 1 incorrect. We had a health status of 290. We found 12 items. And my status is that I am a normal life patient, but I could be better. Okay. So I'm going to stop sharing there. So I've given you an idea of the game. Maybe I just show you very, very quickly as a comparison the other game, which was developed by Focus Games. I'm going to go through this very quickly. So this is what it looks like. You click to start. You click to play. Okay, so I need to select an option. Shielding means predicted against greater risk. Yes, I know that's true. I submit, and it gives me the score, and so on. Now, I've shown you both games, and what I'm saying is that both games are designed to achieve the same objectives. Both games actually have exactly the same content within them, but they operate differently. So going back to my slide presentation again, I want to just finish off very quickly. You've seen 2 examples. I want you to ask yourself, what have these games got in common? How are they different? And do the differences matter? What I will tell you is this, that I believe that if any one of you had the technology that I've got, that I showed you on the screen earlier, without needing to program, any one of you with some thought could create the game that I developed and that you saw just a few moments ago. So now I come to the big secret to success, which I promised you at the beginning of the presentation. And the big secret to success is actually a quote by Robert Louis Stevenson, who said that about life's uncertain journey, that it's better to travel hopefully than to arrive, and the true success is to labor. So the point about this is that you can learn far more from tackling challenges than you can from success. And many people find in their life that success is the worst thing that can happen to them. So if you're thinking about developing games and you're thinking about using the tools that I've just shown you, I can show you 3 suggested approaches to how you use those games in a real world situation. And the technology that I've shown you allows you to do all of those. This technology allows you to provide guided exploration. In other words, I can take somebody around the game as I took you around the game and show them how it works, give them a feel for it. It's called onboarding. Second thing you can do, that any one of you can play that game after this webinar, and so you can learn by yourself. And then the final thing is, maybe as a separate exercise, you can have a quiz which will be complementary to the assessments included within the game. So just something to think about is, if you're going to be using gamification in the classroom, then, and you have the tools available, why not give your students the tools and tell them to create their own gamified learning experience to share with their peers? So you've been involved in one of my free prescriptions. I offer free prescriptions which take the form of introductory videos and online clinic events like this. But I also offer personalized prescriptions, and these are chargeable. And these can take the form of special group workshops. So if any of you are in an organization or university, or you want a special lecture or something tailored exactly to a group of you for your own purposes, then I can provide a group workshop. And I also provide personal consultation. So you may have a specific challenge, you want to develop a learning experience, you want to be successful in any kind of activity, and I'm happy to talk to you about how you can use gamification to achieve that. The best prescriptions are personalized, and as Ivan alluded to earlier on, is that this is not something, gamification is not a prescription or injection that I give to you. It's something that we make up together. And so collaboration with all of the between all of the stakeholders who've got a common goal to design a win-win solution to those problems is by far the best way of approaching it, and gamification has a lot to offer in the process. Well, I hope in a way that I've given you more questions than answers. The questions I specifically want to ask you is, have you learned anything about gamification? If you haven't, why haven't you? Is it my fault? Is it the fault of the way the information is presented? What is the reason why you haven't learned anything about gamification? Could you now go and gamify one of your activities? It's very easily done. You could take a pack of cards into the classroom, and you could give your students a card, and you have a copy of the cards, and you could say, okay, I'm going to ask one of you a question, and you turn the first card up, and the student who's got the same card has to answer that question. That's gamifying one of your activities. Think about how this webinar has been gamified. What have I done to gamify this webinar, and what Gamified elements have I injected into it? And finally, how is this webinar the same as any other webinar you've been to, but how is it different, and did it achieve its objectives? If you want to learn more, then share the game demo. I'm going to be providing Ivan with a recording of this webinar and also the links to the game. Share the game demo with other people and ask them these same questions. And I promise you that you will continue to learn from this exercise. No matter how many times you play the game, you should find something different. No matter how many times you enjoy a good lecture, something that has changed your life, you will find something different into it. So with that, I'm going to stop sharing my screen, and I'd be very happy to answer any questions that you might have. I can see the group chat, so I don't know whether there are any questions in there that people have.
Okay. David, thank you so
Yeah.
much. It's always a joy listening to you. Now, officially, this session is over. For those who have questions and who would like to ask questions and would like to stay back, please do. I think, David, you have some time. You can stay around.
Yeah,
And
sure.
anybody who is keen to ask your questions, please do just unmute. And then the first, yeah, David's ready
Yes.
to take on any questions.
Yeah.
Yep.
So, how long did it take to develop the game? Well, this game was developed, you could say, over 48 hours. It's been refined, I mean, basically 2 days of 8 hours, so not a huge amount of time. The software that's required to develop a game like that, well, the game development tool or the immersive learning tool is something called 3D Vista, VT Pro. I will just type that in. 3D Vista. Okay, it's a piece of software which you can purchase, and that purchase price includes support. It works out in the UK. The purchase price is around about £500, but it includes everything you need to. Apart from the content, to create the game with the quizzes, with the with the quizzes, with also the option of creating an executable file, so you can create a file which you can run offline. So the software that I use for the images actually came with the camera. The camera that I used was a Ricoh Theta Z1, which, including the 360-degree microphone, costs around £900 in the UK, but it comes with its own software. So, any other questions? Please type them in, or if you want to open up the audio, I'm happy to answer a question.
Anybody got any questions?
Oh, how did you develop the concept? What was the creative process? I developed the concept, which is based on thinking about coronavirus and posing the challenge. Who would you develop the game for, and what would be the objectives? And so the concept was really developed from thinking about the UK and my own town. So I'd already got 360-degree aerial photographs of my own town, which is a place called Toaster in the UK, and I'd also got 360-degree images of different places in the town, like the cafe, the museum, the pub, the church, etc. And so I based the concept around the coronavirus rules in the UK, and accordingly, I basically cloned that concept, but instead of using my own local environment, I use images that I'd already shot in my times in Singapore, Thailand, and Kuala Lumpur. The capturing of the score and the report, it's also a feature of 3D VT Pro. Absolutely, it is. And also, it's SCORM compliant. You can integrate it into an LMS system. And so, you know, everything that you saw comes with 3D Vista Pro. You just need to learn how to use it. But they have some excellent tutorials and some very good support staff too, who are always willing to give advice. Any other questions? As I said, the Focus Games game that had 10,000 views, and they did some research on it to find out whether it had an impact on people. And yes, it did increase their knowledge and did increase their intention to follow the guidelines. So,
David,
yeah.
could the game be integrated with the LMS? You did mention it could,
Yeah,
right?
yes, it did. Yeah, it is. Yeah, it is. I've already done that. Not with this particular game, but any game developed with VT Pro can be integrated into an LMS system. They're SCORM compliant, and you can also do a lot of personalization of the reports. And the great thing about this program is that it is continuously being developed. This quiz feature and this LMS integration is probably only about 4 weeks old. So it's a very new release of the software, and every new release so far, anyway, has been free of charge. So I've got a question: how developing for more advanced audience? A mechanical engineer who may build a ventilator pump, the concepts around specification as per COVID-19. Okay, well, obviously, the most important thing to begin with is to have some content that is relevant to the task involved, which if you're making a 360-degree immersive experience, you would need to take your camera and you would need to take some screenshots inside a workshop or wherever the medical engineer works. And you would need to probably also create some form of simulation game. Now, 3D Vista Pro is not a simulation game. When people are designing a ventilator pump, particularly to tackle the needs of COVID-19, and I'm not sure what you mean by specification as per COVID-19. Do you mean by that people who are building the pump need to comply with social distancing, or do you mean that the ventilator pump should be effective in treating people who've got COVID-19? Okay, so it's got to be effective in treating people who've got COVID-19. Well, for that, you will definitely need some subject matter experts who can provide the specifications. But if you can create a simulation game which allows you to simulate the effect of this is something which this is something which is really not something you can't do within 3D Vista VT Pro. What you would need to do is to create a custom game which simulates the behavior of the pump and test that against the requirements of COVID-19. So that's a slightly different kind of scenario, but you could use gamification in the sense of challenging yourself, never to be satisfied with a particular outcome. It's trying different elements, so you can build in challenges, think really outside of the box. But once you've built the ventilator pump, then it could be quite easily incorporated in a 3D Vista VT Pro immersive learning experience by taking photographs and videos of the environment in which it's going to be used and incorporating those into the learning content.
I think, David, in this case, you could actually turn the entire ventilator pump around because you're using a 360 camera. So you can actually start pointing at the different perspective of the pump itself, and getting the instructions on how to actually operate the pump. So I think that
Oh
is
yes,
something
yeah,
that,
yeah. I was really talking about building the pump.
yeah,
If you're wanting to know about operating the pump, how it works, absolutely, you could create 360-degree videos and 360-degree images, and you could zoom into different parts, and you could. So basically, you could have hotspots on the pump, which where you click them, it shows you the working model, and it tells you about the different components. Absolutely. So it's ideal for that. But you need to be able to capture the content. VT Pro would be a tool that you could develop the immersive learning experience that shows you how to use the pump and how it works. It wouldn't show you how to build one.
yeah. So in this case, one of the examples that we were actually exploring at this point is actually how do we do this and implement it for medical education or patient education. When they come into the hospital, they are supposed to be doing something right when they go home. So a lot of these instructions are actually given to them in pen and paper kind of format, and
Mm.
sometimes it's given to them in video format. And sometimes these procedures are simply too long, so they can't remember. So
No,
if we
no.
can actually do it in this format of a 360 video, and they can actually explore the content, I think this is something that might be very useful for the patient. And
Yeah.
a lot of time, whatever they do inside the game, we actually get feedback. And that is something very rare when it is a pen and paper format or it is a video format, because you don't get feedback. You don't know what patient is doing at home.
No.
So
Well,
in this
no.
case, yeah,
This is the whole point about today's telemedicine. The trend in telemedicine is actually for people uh, to capture their data in the home environment without going to a clinic, whether it's rehabilitation, whatever it is, particularly for patients with a chronic condition. So if you look at things like trigger finger, you look at people who've had kidney problems and they need dialysis. You can do two things that I recommend. One is you actually develop a game-like environment which people play when they first come into the clinic. And this is a way of you assessing the patient's understanding of what is required of them. So it gives you some basic metrics that show you the understanding of the patient, and their willingness to play, how long it takes them to do things, etc. So you can start that in the clinic, and then you can give them that game to play at home or something similar. And the idea behind the game which you give them at home is to test their compliance. Give them something entertaining to do at home, but also something which is relevant to their compliance. And you capture the data, as I say, the VT Pro now has an ability to integrate Google Analytics, so you can get some very granular data from the results of a person playing the game, and you give them incentives based on their performance each day. You reward them for in terms of points, so you give them some form of incentive other than the enjoyment of playing the game. So it's a win-win situation. You get to assess the patient in the beginning, and you get a set of tools which assess whether they're being compliant.
yeah, fantastic. Okay, David, I'm not going to take up too much of your time. And thank you everybody for staying and joining this particular workshop. David, could you just share that link one last time for the game so that anybody can just download and play it, right?
Yeah. Okay. I'll just
Yeah,
need
okay.
to bear with me a second. I'll just need to.
Yeah. So for
Uh,
everybody else, if you have any questions, if you want to find out more, by all means, please write to me. My email is at ivan@seriousgamesasia.com. So there will be a third workshop, and the third workshop actually explores the topic on assessment used in games, or what we call game-based assessment. So more than happy to have everybody join us in the third workshop. I will have more details out, and I'll send it out to all of you soon. All right. So thank you, everybody.
I'm
Take
just
care.
pasting the URL into the chat box. So that is the URL, and I will also make the recording of this webinar available after the event. So thanks very much for the opportunity, Ivan, and thank you to everyone for sticking with it to the end. You will, in my slide set that I send to Ivan, you will see my my web address and my email. You can get in touch with me afterwards as well. So thank you once again.